Hello knitting friends, let's knit together this beautiful scarf with this really fun stitch pattern using this technique called sequence knitting. Now I'm going to show you how I created the stitch pattern, how to do it, and then explain how you can create your own beautiful stitches following this technique. So let's get started. Hello, this is Jacqueline from Jack Knits. We're going to knit this scarf together, this beautiful, fun stitch pattern using a technique called sequence knitting. Now, I have a whole nother video that delves really deep into what sequence knitting is. I would encourage you to watch that if you'd like more information. The link will be in the upper right-hand corner, as well as in the description below the video title. I'm just going to today just kind of give you an overview, showing you this technique and how I created this stitch for this scarf pattern. But I encourage you to watch a little bit more in detail with that other video if you would like. Okay, so this very beautiful, kind of unique, variegated stitch pattern was created with the sequence technique. And what that basically is that you start with a particular sequence of knit and purl stitches. In this particular case, I did a sequence of knitting 8, then purling 4. So knit 8, purl 4 is my sequence. It's a 12 stitch sequence. So I started by casting on a multiple of 12 stitches, in this case 24 stitches. And then I added 3 additional stitches to my cast on to make it not quite fit with my multiple of 12. Okay, so it's going to kind of offset my pattern a little bit as I knit, and I'm going to show you how that's done in just a moment. And then on top of that, I also added 2 additional stitches to my cast on count so I could create this really nice clean edge with a very special unique edge stitch. Now those edge stitches are not part of the sequence here. You kind of think of them as fence posts to your pattern, and you kind of pause your sequence knitting when you do those edge stitches, and that will become clear as I go through each row as well. Okay, so let's start my row here with this special edge stitch. So this is not part of my sequence, it's just something that I'm going to do outside of my pattern at the very first and last stitch. So my first edge stitch is going to be just a slip stitch knitwise, so insert your needle as if to knit and slip it off your needle. Now I'm going to do that sequence of knitting 8 and purling 4. So I'm going to knit 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now let's purl 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's start that sequence over again by knitting 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Purling 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to start that sequence over again, but you'll notice that I only have 4 stitches left on my needle. 1 is that edge stitch we don't count with our sequence, but I've got 3 other stitches here where I will not be able to complete my full sequence if I start it again. However, I'm going to start my sequence over again with my knit 8, only knit 3, do my edge stitch, and then when I turn my work, I'm going to complete that sequence at the start of my next row. Okay, so let's start my 8 stitch sequence with knitting 1, 2, and 3. Now let's pause a moment to do our last edge stitch, which is going to be a purl stitch. That's what we're going to do at the end, last stitch of every row. Now we're going to turn our work and again start with that edge stitch, which is not part of our sequence. It's going to be my knitwise slip stitch, which we do at the start of every row. Now we're going to continue with that sequence that we started at the end of the last row, which we did knit 3. We started with 3 of them, so now this next one is going to be my number 4 knit stitch. I'm just continuing my knit 8, purl 4 sequence. So if that was 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now we'll go into the 4 purl. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's start that sequence all over again with knitting 8, 7 and 8, and purling 4. Start again by knitting 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now I'm running out of room here, so I've completed 6 knit stitches. I'm going to need to complete the sequence when we turn our work again. But here's our edge stitch. Let's do that a minute outside of the sequence, purling it, turn our work. Let's do that edge stitch again by slipping it knitwise. And now we're just continuing what we started on the last row. We already knitted 6, so we just need to complete that sequence by knitting 2 more, 7 and 8, and purling 4. Start again by knitting 8, purling 4, start again by knitting 8, then purling 4, but I only have 1 stitch left here to do that, purling 1. Let's do our edge stitch outside of that sequence by doing another purl stitch. Rotate our work or turn our work, and let's do that edge stitch first, slip it knitwise. Now we started with ended our last row with 1 purl stitch, so we need to complete this sequence by doing 3 more purls. Start again by knitting 8. Knit purl 4. Start again by knitting 8. Now purling 4. And this time we actually were able to fully complete that sequence before our edge stitch, which we do another purl stitch just for that edge stitch. And now when we turn our work, we can start brand new again with a brand new sequence of knitting 8 and then purling 4. So you'll continue this and it will just continue to make this beautiful type of stitch because it's kind of shifting, right? Your pattern is shifting every row, which creates this kind of unique design. So now there is another way that you can do this type of sequence knitting. Now with this, we continued our sequence when we ran out of stitches. We continued our sequence when we turned our work. If you want, you can also finish, start a new sequence at the very end, even though you don't have enough stitches. And then when you turn your work, you start over again with your sequence. So if I was doing this row with my sequence and ended up with just 3 knit stitches, I wouldn't complete it when I turn the work. I would just start over each row with a new sequence of knitting 8. That would result in a completely different looking pattern. So you can see that you can create your own very fun patterns, stitch patterns, by just coming up with a unique stitch sequence of knitting and purl. Let's say you just chose to do 3 knits and 2 purls. Add a couple extra stitches so that stitch pattern will shift with each row, and either do the row you continue it with the next row. That's called the serpentine sequence, where you continued on the next row, or you can start over the sequence on the next row, do a 1-row sequence pattern, and you'll have completely different looks every single time. So I hope you give this a try. Either follow this pattern for this beautiful stitch scarf, or create your own very unique pattern by coming up with something very new. You'll find that it's very creative to come up with your own stitch patterns and see once what unique results come a part of it. So I hope you give this a try. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to watch my other video about sequence knitting if you want to delve a little bit further into this and create the really fun patterns. Thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe as well. You'll receive future videos all about knitting tips and techniques really creative stitches and fun patterns. Thanks for watching. Happy knitting!